Hey, everybody, it's your girl, PJamma. PJamma Lyfe. Well, it's kind of hard to see the PJamma Lyfe. And today we have a special guest, and his name is Larry Houston, and he is the producer, director of the XMen, the animated series, as well as several other comics that you and TV shows you might know, such as uh, Fantastic Four and The Amazing Spider-Man, G.I. Joe, Thundar. I mean, just a host of Saturday morning cartoons. Well, we're going to wait for him to come in, but while we're waiting, we are going to talk about WandaVision this week. And the episode is Breaking the Fourth Wall. So, before we get started, why don't I introduce the rest of the crew? And we have here our good friend, all things Star Wars, Professor Star Wars. David, won't you tell the people hello?
Pam, it's great to be here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to what I think is going to be a really exciting show. I've been learning about our guest all week, and I'm really pumped to hear what he has to say. So I'm glad you're here.
All right. And our other host with the most, the big brain of all things Marvel and graphic novels. Pat, why don't you tell the people hello? You're on mute.
Well, that was interesting. Never did that. Okay, well, here we are. Hey, technical difficulties aside, excited to be here. Want to talk about all the good stuff. Big X-Men fan for years and years and years. So I'm super excited to talk to Larry, and also talk about WandaVision if we get time. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for him, why don't we go ahead and talk about this week's episode of WandaVision? It was jam-packed with info, with stuff that's going on. It was a fantastic episode. So why don't we show a clip of the episode?
Look, we've all been there, right? Letting our fear and anger get the best of us. Intentionally expanding the borders of the false world we created.
Mom, my head feels weird. It's like really noisy. I don't like it.
Resting her eyes. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. It's probably just a case of the Mondays. Am I right?
I think I got there in the nick of time, because she was one split end away from cutting her own bangs.
Yeah, I'm not great at this gig, I gotta be honest. It doesn't really speak to my skill set.
I can get through.
Monica, no!
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Oh man, so much to unpack in this episode. And what did you all think? Let's start with David.
Oh, again, with this show, it has been so beautifully woven together from the first episodes to where we are now. Absolutely loved it. And I was thinking who the real villain was going to be. This is a spoiler, so if you're going to watch the show, you got to watch the shows we're talking about before so we can talk about it. This was fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I love the villain. I love the humor in it. And especially the montage of how it's really, we see whose show it really is at the end of the day. So this was just really something special.
Yeah, it was and the way they did it was incredible and really funny too. So but we're going to talk about it because people should watch it by now. So
Right, you got to.
And Pat, what did you think?
Well, it confirmed something I had been saying for a while, that Agnes was Agatha Harkness, who is like a major Marvel, well, not a major Marvel character, but she's one that's crossed over many, many different books as a magic user, an instructor of magic, a not necessarily an evil person, but maybe chaotic neutral, so not really bad, but not really good, but just all about causing chaos. So perfect. And I'm so happy to see the wonderful channeling of the different kinds of TV shows, because there was 3 or 4 that I saw that were distinctly referenced. You had the Modern Family reference. You had the intro was The Office. No doubt about the intro being The Office. Then they had the either it was the Munsters or the Addams Family montage at the end, which was, there were just so many good things going on with this. And they had the first post credits trailer bit so for the next week to get you, if you weren't already coming back, I don't know what you're doing, but you were coming back anyway. But this really set the hook that you need to come watch next episode for sure.
Yeah,
great show.
Yeah, because we're in the last act. These next 3 episodes are it, so we only have 2 after this, so it's going to be, I just can't wait. But I thought what was interesting to me was, one, the reveal of Agatha Harkness, but I think from the comics they were friendly. Her and Wanda, she taught Wanda magic, and I think she was there when Wanda and Vision got together and got married, and I think she has been an ally of theirs. So it's interesting that she may not be one, but we don't know. That could be a red herring too. And maybe she's there actually to help rather than harm, but although she did say what she did to Sparky.
She killed the dog. You can't be a good guy if you killed the dog.
Wait. She's a witch. She's a witch. It was a reference to the Wizard of Oz. It was totally another reference, another homage. And okay, here's my stupid uber nerd moment for it. Yeah. The reference to when she's like, don't you look at this mole? I got a mole. Remember in Monty Python and the Holy Grail when they were like, she's a witch, and she dressed me like this, and but she's got a mole. She's a witch. Can we burn her? They were telling me she's a witch.
Yeah,
wow. Earlier, that was a great super nerd reference. I was like, that's Monty Python. What the heck?
Yeah, yeah. And I thought something was up last week, because when Vision came to talk to her in the car, and she was kind of mean to him, I thought. And so I was like, well, if she's maybe a good guy, she wouldn't say something that vicious to him. And so I was like, oh, okay, something's not right. I guess my whole reference, her skirt in the earlier episodes when they were at the wall, her and Herb were at the wall, and her skirt had the logo of sword on it. Maybe that wasn't, but it could still be right, because we don't know what Hayward is up to. And maybe he's in an alliance. I'm just spitballing here, but maybe he's in an alliance with Agatha to help keep her powers down, because maybe her grief has caused her to go, bonkers or something, like in the story. So, I don't know, but I was kind of upset that I wanted Hayward to be a good guy, but it doesn't look like he's a good guy. It looks like he's kind of a Senator Kelly kind of.
I would say historically, the administration or whatever you want to call it, the authority figures in Marvel and in any of the MCU don't do well. Nick Fury's about the closest they get, and even he's kind of gray. He's not a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah, and I think that I just didn't want him to be a bad guy. So, but
Bad guy's going to bad. What are you going to do?
Bad guy's got to be bad. And Pietro at the end, I don't know. Is it Pietro? Or
I think there's still a case. I think there's a case to be made for him being a bad actor.
I think it's Mephisto. I think they're going to bring in. I'm hanging on to Mephisto.
Awesome Mephisto, by the way. Evan's going to be an awesome Mephisto, by the way. He can do that sort of thing. That's right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. And so, let's see. And when they went down to Agatha's dungeon, when she was walking through, did you all notice there was a magical book on the ledge? And so I'm sure that's another power book similar to didn't Dr. Strange have a power
many grimoires,
yeah. They had like several of them, from the movie. So I wonder if she has one of those versions after everything that happened in Doctor Strange. So that's gonna be like and is she more powerful than Wanda? I don't know. It remains to be seen. But speaking about power, who finally made her appearance in this episode?
Captain Marvel.
Photon. Oh, she goes by Photon. I like it.
I'm 90. I'm 90s on that. Photon. She's Captain Marvel. Did that superhero landing? I'm like, yep.
Yes. Both times she had two of them, and I was like, I was going Betty for it. I was like, oh, here she is. Finally. So what I thought was really great about the episode was that you got kind of two origins. You got two origin stories. You got Monica, the side of light, and then possibly Agatha Harkness, the side of dark. So you got two origin stories in there. And boy, I'd love to see how they're going to use Monica's power to be able to bring her character into the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of wondering, and I don't know if this was significant or not, that when they were going through the dungeons, you saw the conduits rippling with power or whatever. It was a purple power, similar to the Power Stone in Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm wondering where, who knows where that's coming from, but it was a similar color. And I don't know if it means anything any more than Mace Windu's lightsaber being purple meant anything that other than Samuel L. Jackson wanted a purple lightsaber.
Right.
Because that's our color. Yeah. So, because that was interesting. Because Agatha, when they went down, her eyes turned purple when she was like finally here, and she put the whammy on Wanda. But didn't Monica's eyes turn blue?
They were blue.
Is that what happens to her when she develops her powers in the books?
Well, in the book, she basically turned into being a pure energy. She could, turn herself into neutrinos, which can go through anything at the speed of light. She could basically, when she came out of the wall and she could see the electromagnetics, because they showed all the ripples around transformers and around the boxes hanging on lines. You could see all that. That was her thing. She was basically a master of all the energy forms, like electromagnetic. She could sense them. The thing she was big was photon blasts and stuff like that. That was her offensive capabilities, but she had a sensitivity to all the wavelengths of energy.
Oh, well, Texas could probably use her right now.
Too soon.
But yeah, I think that it's really going to be interesting because the lady who gave her the truck, the super truck, whatever that was,
You turned it into a van. Yeah.
yeah, was that the same lady who was with Hayward?
I'm unsure.
Yeah, because I thought when she said, you got friends, yourself, we're not just doing this for your mom, you got friends too. And so I wondered if the woman who was with Hayward, when he said, we're gonna go live, we're about to do this. And then she said, okay. And then I wondered if she was the same person who then gave Monica the truck and helped her out. And I wondered if she also was the aerospace engineer that Monica was referencing earlier in a couple of episodes ago. But I'm still holding out for Reed Richards.
Yep.
It's
All right.
Reed Richards. Because I forget there was some great actor who was going to be you know what? I know why now they did the reference to The Office. Jim, what's his name in real
Jim
life?
Krasinski.
John
Krasinski for Jim.
Oh, I have heard
his name could be Reed Richards in
Oh my God.
Fantastic Four. So maybe that's why they have the Office theme. If he's going to be Reed Richards, that's a little nod to that too, because The Office didn't make sense to me.
Well, it wasn't a family show, yeah.
Right. So
It's a 30-minute sitcom, which is in that genre. The difference is instead of the husband going to some office where we never know what they do, that was kind of that. So I could see, because Modern Family really kind of played off that same documentary vibe that The Office had. So I could see both of them, but they don't do anything by accident with Marvel. We know that with the Disney stuff. So John Krasinski could very well show up, maybe stretching out one hand, if nothing else, just for part of it there. As Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Swatting them away.
And that just hit me that it was John Krasinski. That was the name I remember.
Right.
And
that's a really good reference, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, you heard it here first.
Yeah. But where are the boys? Where are these kids that we've barely known, and they're changing ages left and right? If Agatha killed the dog, what has she done to them boys?
See, I don't think she's killed them, because remember the cartoon before I think it was one of the commercials that talked about snacking and eating.
Go-Gurt. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's in reference of eating power. So I think that the kids are going to be used for somebody to use their power as an energy source.
The kids were there.
No.
The kids were there. When they disappeared and you wondered where the hell they went, the kids were there. Remember, there was the rabbit, and then there was the weird little cicada on the wall.
Yeah.
On the window. The rabbit was called Speedy. Wonder what that could reference. Oh, the speedster child. And the little cicada on the window. I think Agatha transformed both the kids into something else, because that was about the point when she does the little whole evil reveal. Let me show you my master plan, thing that every evil person in the world does. You caught me monologuing. Yeah, exactly.
But the rabbit's name was Senior Scratchy. It wasn't Speedy.
Maybe it wasn't. But rabbits are habitually portrayed as the faster of the two.
Yeah.
In every fable since the dawn of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay.
But the rabbit was there before, though, right? I mean, one of the kids was petting the rabbit.
It was, but when she's wondering where the kids are, there was like a weird little shot of the rabbit and a weird little shot of the cicada on the wall.
Okay.
The locust.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, what is this bug? Who has bugs like this? So I wasn't quite sure.
I think he's transformed both the kids into the animals to hide them from Wanda.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if it means anything that the close form, but
yeah, the images at that time, I think, does kind of lend itself to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and she could have had something else. I mean, the rabbit could have been imaginary before that, so who knows? But I do think that's a really good point by Pat with the cinematography there.
Because she looked when I forget which his name is it Tommy or Billy said to her, "You're quiet. Why are you quiet, Miss Agatha or Miss Agnes?" And she gave a funny look like, huh. And so I wonder if she, to me, I thought maybe she's just now realizing they have powers that could be useful to her. And so then, but I like your idea that they're actually being transformed into a rabbit and a cicada, but I don't know what the cicada symbolism is.
I would have to look that up. I'm sure there's well, because Wiccan, it would relate to the Wiccan character, which was like a sorcerer, kind of a druid type of thing. I'd have to look it up to see exactly what kind of a symbology is included. I've got some books. I can look it up.
Yeah.
but I didn't have a chance. I rewatched it today, and I mean, I was watching it stupid close. Like, I paused on that because they did that really weird shot of showing the weather forecast after she took her, and they took it for a second. So I backed it up and paused it to see. And it was just, you know, a boring weather forecast. But there's a lot of things that they show you that you think doesn't mean anything, but it might later. So you need to really look close. I did a duty analysis today.
Right. And one of the things that stood out to me too, you mentioned how he said it's quiet here. The one little boy. He had started the episode by saying his head was really hurting.
Yeah.
There are all these voices going on.
Yeah.
But then he goes over there. Almost, I was actually waiting for him to say, "We want to stay here."
Right.
We want to stay there because it's quiet, it's peaceful. But there is a level of calmness in his head, maybe because she's been kind of like screaming at him or something. And then once he's there under her control, she's not doing that. So I thought that was a fascinating little line there from the.
I thought it was like he could hear thoughts. Like isn't he an empath or something like that in the comics? Or he's got not telekinesis, but he probably does. But he can hear people's thoughts, like mind control, like Wanda has. And so now it seems like in comics, when they first come into their powers, they can't control it. And so he hasn't developed a block yet to control all the voices he's hearing. But with Agatha, she's probably got blocks because she doesn't want him to read her mind that she's evil. So
that's a good point. Maybe so.
She shut him out. And for him, that's very comforting. So when he said that, I was like, uh-oh.
She's about 20 years cicada.
This is another check. So, okay. I is our special guest here?
Good.
All right. We might be able to get him in. Let's see.
Hey.
Oh, there he is. Now this is truly the man, the myth, the legend.
Oh God. Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. We were actually discussing WandaVision, and it was such a great episode. We were just enjoying talking about WandaVision. So we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here, sir.
I'm glad to be here. Just made it back home just in time.
Just to start you off, what did you think of tonight's WandaVision episode?
Oh, I was like, I was floored. I was like, oh my God, Agatha, she's the person manipulating everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I didn't expect her.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. And there are a lot of clues about her, especially last week as she dressed up as the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yes.
And a couple of other little things, but the montage at the end was just super hilarious. And we were talking about how much we enjoyed the it's either the Addams Family or the Munsters reference. The music back in there. So yeah, fantastic episode.
Yeah, it looks like we got the beginning of a character called Spectrum. There's a Marvel superhero woman called Spectrum.
Oh, so you don't think it is going to be Photon or Captain Marvel?
Marvel's already got a Captain Marvel, so she's probably going to be Spectrum.
Okay. All right.
But,
and
originally the first Captain Marvel was a Black woman, and then she became was it Photon?
Photon, I think.
Yeah, and then she became Spectrum. I mean, she had like 3 or 4 name changes.
Yeah. It was So I like the word photon. So I hope she goes with photon, but it might be like you say, Spectrum. So
because she could.
Isn't that a cable company?
Yeah, it is. Now it is, yeah. But when she landed and she could see all the electrical wires and stuff, and her eyes were glowing, she could see the spectrum. So they might be going with that name.
I think that's probably a really great reference. And why don't we introduce you to the other guys on our chat? Go ahead, fellas, introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into learning about Larry, your life and your experiences, and what you think of what's going on in the world of comics today. So, David, you want to introduce yourself?
I will. Larry, hi. I'm David Downey. Thank you for being here on the show and getting ready for tonight's interview. First, I just want to say congratulations on what I see as just a wonderful career. The amazing work you've done and what you've been able to be a part of. I had no idea what an impact you were having on my life growing up, and it's really nice to meet you face to face here in this virtual world of PJamma Lyfe. So thanks for being here, man.
Well, thank you for the compliments. I feel blessed that I was in the right place at the right time to be involved with a lot of shows and to make a difference. I've always wanted to try and entertain people the way I was entertained when I grew up.
Yeah.
So when I got a chance to direct, that's when I had control to make that happen.
Oh man, and I bet you have some stories to tell us, and I'm gonna try to get all of them too. Pat, why don't you introduce yourselves and say hi?
Nice to meet you, Larry. My name's Patrick, a longtime fan. I didn't even know I was a fan, but I am. And you guys that work behind the scenes are just kind of laboring in the background, but man, you've got a body of work that's amazing, and I'm just really excited to be able to talk to you because we don't get to do Comic Cons right now because everybody's staying at home. Yeah, but this is the closest I get. This is great, and this is super awesome. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah, well, why don't we show the people just a smidge of what you've been able to do? And if you don't know who Larry F. Houston is, Googling, because he is the real deal. So let's show the highlights of some of Larry's work.
powers combined, I am Captain Planet.
Captain Planet, he's our hero. Gonna take pollution down to zero.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
Oh.
Think you're pretty fast, don't you? Well, I got a few little orange moves of my own.
Yeah.
And that is just a tiny bit of what Brother Larry here had to do. And it's just amazing. And we're so happy you're here to talk to us. And part of the time, I mean, because most people don't get a chance to talk to animators, and particularly African-American animators. And so could you start off by telling us, how you got started in animation and what kind of challenges did you face when you started, or probably throughout your career as a Black comic artist and a creator?
Well, when I can say I grew up in South Central LA. My mom was always moving, single parent. And what happened was that over the years, I kept losing and gaining friends. So my most constant companion was comic books and TV shows.
Yep.
So I kind of latched onto that as something to watch and get entertained by. And it just prompted me to start drawing the cartoons I saw on television. Fast forward to about maybe high school, I met some people who were like Black comic nerds like me, and we're all in class, and we were all making our own little comic books. Like I was drawing my own version of the Avengers and the XMen and all that kind of stuff. All of us were doing it just for our own pleasure. And should have brought some water up. And when I was getting ready to go out of high school, I told my mom I want to be a comic book artist. I want to go to New York. And she said, "That's nice, dear, but you got to get a real job." So I went and became a computer repair person. I started working for different companies, fixing computers and stuff. And I did that for like 7 years. And it was in the 7th year that I was working in computers and I was getting bored. And I had friends that were working at Disney, at Hanna-Barbera. They were all working at the studios that I was going. And they kept telling me, "Come on down and get some work like we're doing." And so I decided to, and I told this story before, but it was like, I didn't want to give myself a safety net. And so what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to try and see if I can make it as an artist. I think I was about 24 or 25, somewhere back then. And so I said, I tell kids, don't do this. But I quit a job and then I went looking for a job. And that's backwards. You don't do that. Okay. But I jumped off the cliff waiting to see if I could fly, Mm-hmm. And at the company I saw was a company called Filmation. Mm-hmm. They were advertising for artists. I'm like, great. I go down there and they give you a test, see how well you can draw. Took the test twice, failed it twice. My physical anatomy drawing was like poor. Mm-hmm. But the supervisor at the time, his name was Herb Hazelton. And in my portfolio, those same drawings I did for fun in high school, he saw that my own comic book pages. And he said, you might be better at doing to do storyboards. And in my head, I'm going, what the hell is storyboards? I had no idea. But he took me upstairs to the supervisor of storyboards, introduced me. God, I can't remember his name right now, but he gave me model sheets. He gave me storyboard paper. He says, okay, take this as a test and see what you can do. And so I did. I took it home. It didn't look to be that hard. So I just, I drew it overnight and I brought it back the next day. And it seemed to impress. First, it impressed him that I did it so fast. And what I didn't realize is what he had given me was a script that everybody on that floor was working on. And so he saw my boards, and it impressed him enough that he took the drawings I did and put it actually in the show. He replaced someone else's drawing with my drawings. And then he hired me on the spot.
Wow.
And that's how I got into animation.
Wow. And you then were the first African-American at Filmation doing storyboards. Is that right?
That's correct. And at the time, I didn't know. I was happy. Look, I just quit a job. I was happy to have a job. I got a check again,
Yeah.
And so I started working there, and I didn't really realize I had broken a glass ceiling to maybe 20 years later.
Wow.
And my friend Floyd Norman, he works for Disney. He was one of their key animators on Jungle Book and 101 Dalmatians. We were having lunch, and that's when he told me that I had broken a glass ceiling. I'm going, what are you talking about? And apparently they had never, Floyd had done storyboards at Disney for his, he would do a sequence of whatever he was working on, but nobody had actually ever been hired for that position. And so I was actually the first hired for that position as a storyboard artist.
Wow.
In the industry.
Wow.
And so I worked there for about 2 years, and then Stan Lee started a company called Marvel Productions, and they needed someone to work on the syndicated Spider-Man. So I got hired away to work on that series, and I was there at Marvel Productions for about the next 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the idea of leaving, to work with Stan Lee, it's literally like 2 doors down from my office. I was like, yes, I want to work there. Yes.
Now, and Stan Lee and I think it was Jack Kirby came up with Black Panther and some other things, because that was a real challenging time, but they were dealing with a lot of real issues going on in the culture. And so you were there at that time when they were doing some of that. And how do you think your influence and your experiences, do you feel like they helped to shape some of those stories? Did they talk to you about what was going on at the time and ask you what does this mean? What's going on? You know how we do.
At the time, I was just an artist, so I'm pretty low. I was low on the totem pole at the time. I was just another storyboard artist. But the thing is, I had a chance. I would have a chance to talk with Stan and give my input on certain things, so that I could bring my perspective to what was going on in different sequences and different scripts. But I wasn't in charge, so basically I could give suggestions and things. On the let's see if I can remember right. On Spider-Man's Amazing Friends, they were, in order to get the show started, they were having problems selling the first scripts for Spider-Man. They went to the networks, they kept rejecting the scripts. So I asked them, can I submit a script? They said, yeah. So I went home and I came up with a script for Spider-Man and Amazing Friend called Swarm, where they're going to fight these bees, this guy made out of bees.
Yeah.
And so I submitted the script, and my script was the first one they bought. It was Swarm and something with the Green Goblin. I can't remember the name, the exact title, but they bought 2 scripts. Mine was the first, and then Green Goblin was the second. And they gave me, they were happy at, you know, what I did and stuff. But I got snookered out of writing the script because they said I wasn't experienced. So they paid me for everything, but I didn't get the upfront credit. But I got, at the time, I was like, hey, I got money for it. So it's great.
Right.
So,
And
so they, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, so they would come to me on a lot of the stuff on Spider-Man's Amazing Friends because they figured out that I knew the mythology way better than they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would talk to me about, you know, this bill and that bill and this, who's that, I would talk to them about. And that was kind of like the reference on what was going on. Because obviously Stan knew a lot, but Stan had stepped away from the books. And I was still a comic book nerd. It's still going to buy comic books every Wednesday. So I was keeping up with everything. Mm-hmm. And so I knew, so Stan didn't even know about Swarm. It was something that had been recently created after he left being in charge of Marvel. So I had all this stuff in my head about who did what and where.
Mm-hmm. And
so in that way, yeah, they did access me for a lot of different stuff like that.
And it seems like you had a real influence in some of the drawings, because I noticed in XMen and we talked about Exo Squad and some of the other ones, you can see your stamp on the animation. Yeah. And so you have a very strong point of view. And how was it to be can you describe the process of being a director on a show, and you know, kind of what the back end is like?
Being a director on a show, pretty much you're in control of everything. You're in charge of all the scripts getting done, storyboards. You're in charge of models, backgrounds, props, character design, character color. You're in charge of the look, everything about that one episode you're working on. Mm-hmm. And you see it from beginning to end. And just to give an idea, when you get a script to work on, from the time you get it to the time it gets on the air, it's 9 months because it's all manual labor. And so like when I was directing, I was like one of I think 5 directors on G.I. Joe. Uh-huh. And so we'd each take an episode, and you know, and that's how it got done, because overseas they had maybe a crew of like maybe 10 studios. Oh. And so, you know, Studio One would get episode 1, 2, you know, and then by the time it came back to the first studio again, they should have finished that one and be ready for the next one. And that's how it went. But the process of being a director is a lot of work. Yeah. But it was fun. I requested the challenge because I wanted to be a director, because I had seen so many shows go through my fingers, and I, you know, watching, it's like, God, I wish I could have fixed this or done this, but I wasn't a director all the time. All I could do was do the best I could on my storyboard to make it the best images I could do. But, you know, once it leaves your hands, you know, you have no control. That's because that's the director's job to pull the images together.
Right. And one thing I noticed about your story in the various animation that you've done is that while they were shows driven for kids, they were actually very adult themes. And so, I mean, they had, like, you talked about slavery and XMen, and you talked about racism, and you talked about a lot of different things. The AIDS, I think there was an episode about when Bishop came because there was a mutant disease that I thought may have been talking about AIDS at the time. And some of the things around grief and loss and you know, abuse. And I mean, those are some really sophisticated things for a Saturday morning children's story. And talk about why you all made those choices to not just talk about comedy to kids, but to talk about real issues to kids.
Well, one of the things that happened was when I was working at Marvel Productions, my boss was Stan Lee and Margaret Lesh. She was like the two CEOs at the time. We did a show called, I was one of the co-directors. We did a show called Pride of the XMen as a pilot way back in the mid 80s somewhere. And, we did the show, we got Japanese animation, we got some really good stuff. And it didn't sell because CBS, NBC, ABC didn't understand what we were trying to do. And so it didn't go anywhere. Fast forward about maybe 6 years, and my boss, Margaret Lesh, is now the CEO of Fox Kids Saturday morning. And so she called me and three other people, Will Mineo, Rick Holberg, Eric Lee Wall and his wife. And she got us together and said, look, we're going to do the X-Men, because she really believed in the show. So that's how I got on the air. But the one thing she wanted us to do was like push the envelope, And so we made the decision that we didn't want the show to be, we didn't want it to be Super Friends. We didn't want it to be Scooby-Doo. And she said, and she allowed us to not, instead of writing down the kids, she allowed us to write up to kids. She said, it's okay to write to teenagers and above. She gave us that leeway to actually tell more adult stories within the framework of a Saturday morning cartoon show. The one thing she wanted to make, she asked us to do was to make sure it was accessible to people beyond just the X-Men audience, because the X-Men audience, the comic book people, were maybe about 100,000 fans who buy the books every month back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's nothing on television. You need 10, 15 million people watching the show to keep it on the air.
Right.
And so we decided we would take the X-Men mythology and we kind of distilled it down to something that a regular person could watch the show without needing to know all the backstory, and have a beginning, a middle, and an end to almost every episode. No, every episode, I'm sorry. But she said it's okay for us to have you can have an A storyline, but you can have a B and a C storyline that connects, that's like the string that connects all the episodes together. So when she allowed us to do that, it was like, great. And that's where a lot of subplots came from, like the Beast being in jail, and that carrying that over for several episodes, or Charles and Magneto stuck in the Savage Land.
Yeah.
And basically all of that stuff would come together at some point. So she allowed us to, within the parameters of Saturday morning, you'd only go so far,
Right.
But she allowed us to write up the kids. And the other thing we lucked out on was that our broadcasting standards person, oh God, I can't remember her name now again, but we were very lucky in that she came from live action. She didn't come from Saturday morning kiddie things.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a more of an adult approach to storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, once we got her confidence that we weren't going to slip something in beyond her, and she saw what we were doing, she let us push it all the way to the edge, what we could do.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the first two episodes, when Morph gets killed,
yeah,
we can't say he's been killed. We can say everything, but he's been killed. The warning, we can do the loss, we can do all that. But there's, we couldn't use the words, and we convinced her that the way Wolverine processes his loss, that he gets angry. So he comes to the Cyclops and punches him in the stomach. And that's the way he processes grief for him. Mm-hmm. And so she allowed it. And it was great because with that killing the character off and having characters actually fight each other, punch each other, it really set off to the audience that this is not Super Friends. This is not the stuff you've seen before. We're trying to do something new here. And it set us on a course that was our own. We were pioneering a new way of telling adventure shows.
Yeah, yeah.
And we invented in the show we invented the recap, like previously on X-Men. So we could get up on what they missed, if they missed it. That hadn't been done yet.
Oh, wow. And that is so much a part of the culture. Even if you look at WandaVision today,
Yes, they do the same thing.
You know, it's the exact same thing. And so was there, can you remember any story that you felt that you really wanted to do, but then the network was like, dude, you can't do this. This is too much. Or any other show that you had a storyline that you wanted to do, but weren't allowed to do?
Pretty much no. There are stories that we tried to get off the ground, but the story didn't work as a script didn't work. So we had to pause. There was one with a submarine, which didn't work out with Omega Red. But the one thing we tried to make one thing we tried to do with each episode is have the story based upon the character and what they're going through, personal problems, or it's about them. It's not about, look, there's a robot, let's go beat it up. No, it's more about what was going on with the characters. We tried to keep it like that kind of stories, as opposed to, the random robot, let's go beat it up.
Yeah.
That's one thing we tried to do. That's what we tried to do.
Oh, wow. So, and those were the early days of Fox. I mean, a lot of young people might not realize, but Fox was the fourth network. And prior to that, there were only three. And so Fox is relatively new, came out in 90, I think, or 89, 90 maybe. So
it's about 93, I think.
Yeah. And so it's new. And so because of that, they needed content. So you guys, he just let you guys really do some stuff that maybe, another network wouldn't have allowed you to do. And looking now that there are several cartoon stations, networks, I should say, how do you think the comics and the animation of today, how do you feel that is serving serving kids versus kind of what you all are doing? Do you see it has evolved or devolved?
I see it as being stagnant, because a lot of the shows that I grew up with and tried to create, which was like adventure shows that are kind of fun and involving. Mostly right now, there's only comedies, and there's no adventure shows out there. There are some funny shows like Gravity Falls and stuff like that, but there's no adventure shows anymore, except for, I think it's a show called Young Justice, which is kind of like what we were doing with the XMen. And that's a really nice show. But it lasted for maybe 2 or 3 seasons. They got canceled and there was like a whole bunch of time where they didn't do anything with it. And then now it's back on one of their streaming services. They got picked up again.
Oh, wow. So in looking now at your work laid the foundation for the Marvel we see today. That's what I'm saying.
I believe that's true.
I really think that's true. What do you think of the Marvel movies that have come out, and what do you think of the future of superhero genre in movies and TV? Because it's a lot now.
Yeah. The thing is that up until Kevin, I think Marvel, with Kevin Feige in charge of steering the Marvel films, he's pretty much a comic book geek like I am. And luckily he was the guy at the top of the pyramid who was guiding these shows, and he felt like I did that you can take the mythology in the books and you can just put it up on the screen, and people like that. People really enjoy a show that's actually accurately based or accurately adapted from the books that it's based on. And no, I'm really happy with the work, with what he's done with all the Marvel films, because it's like watching my comic book come to life on the big screen with a real budget, and with computers doing all the special effects. And it's like, oh man, the Infinity Wars and Endgame. It's like, oh man, it was like a kid in a candy store. I love that stuff.
Mm-hmm. How would you like to see Marvel evolve from where they are?
I guess I'm not sure. I think I like the direction they're going. I like the fact like they're trying to do something with with WandaVision, trying to continue the mythology, but in a new way. Because I have ideas of maybe where they're going with this Wanda stuff, but alternate realities, parallel worlds. You're not sure where they're going to go with it, but it seems like it might be a way for them to bring the X-Men or the Fantastic Four into the universe that they've set up. Mm-hmm. And because that's one of the things about other films before the first Iron Man was that none of these films were interconnected. They didn't seem like the same universe, but that's the one thing that Kevin Feige has done with his stuff, is make sure that it's a connected universe so people can feel just like they're reading the comic books, Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I tried to do with the X-Men, is that you're watching the X-Men, but you might see Iron Man over here, or Doctor Strange over there, or Spider-Man over here, to try and give you a glimpse that maybe this is all one big animated universe. Mm-hmm. And that's what Marvel's doing. Now I have any idea where it should go, but as long as they continue on the route and continue with diversity and inclusion, with the characters and stuff, I think they're on the right track to making entertainment for people who never were represented in the shows, in the books, in the comic books, and putting it on the screen, and not in a way that's like in the old days when I grew up in the 60s, where you see a black guy in a film, he's going to die at the end. Nowadays we survive. Right.
And then become the main superhero. So, yes. and that's one thing about the diversity aspect of Marvel, is that it's been, when Black Panther came out, I know I was so proud of the work that Ryan Coogler did and everyone who was involved, because it showed a whole different side of the diaspora of Africans all over the world. And it was just a great story. It was just a fantastic story. Yeah. And what did you think when you saw it? And I know when I saw it, there were people dressed up as Wakanda, a bunch of little baby Black Panthers and Shuris. It was just beautiful. And what did you think about that cultural moment?
Oh, I loved the film, and I was wondering how they're going to depict Wakanda, what it looked like, and it was perfect. It was just the way I thought. It wasn't the books where it was like a hidden city, but it's all high technology. It's not a backwards place, and it's like a wonderful place to be. If I vacation, I'd go to Wakanda if I could do it.
I think one of the cutest things I saw was Delta Airlines had Wakanda Flight 1234. I just thought that was just so cute when they did that. And I know I'm a big comic fan, but Pat is the biggest comic fan. I wanted to give him a chance to ask you some questions, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure,
Pat,
go ahead.
Well, yeah, like I said, when you were talking about going out and buying your comic books every Wednesday, yeah, I still do. I'm not ashamed about it. Every other week I'm out buying comic books because I've been in this for I'm well over about 1,500 comics now, and my wife doesn't know how much I spend on. We don't talk about it.
Just bring them in and hide them somewhere.
I bring them in. She says, oh, how much they cost? We don't talk about that. No, don't worry about it. I got this. Yeah. Oh yeah. But it just looking at I just can't imagine what the production demands are like to try to get a new episode out every week, especially back in the day when it was like everything was being hand animated, where you didn't have like the cheats that they've got nowadays. To try to they can put out a lot of material in a lot quicker time with a lot less people. But tell me about how stressful that was. Because it sounds like you're working with like 3 or 4 different studios at any given moment. Because I expect you were probably doing like 2 or 3 episodes. You're going to do week 1, week 6, and week 10, or whatever. And yeah, trying to you must juggle really good, is all I can think.
Well, back when I was directing, you'd get us to give you an idea. You'd get a script, maybe 35, 30 pages. I'd have to read the whole thing and break it down. I break it down into 3 acts and hand off each section to an artist. And I would try and give an artist what they were good at. Like if someone's good at drawing backgrounds or girls or machines or fighting, I would try and like almost casting the artist to the script. And then after they take it 5 weeks later, I would get, about 4 weeks later, I'd get back like 300 pages of drawings that I have to go through page by page, panel by panel, to see how well they told the story, and to make sure that they followed the script so that it told the story. And if they didn't do what the script called for, I had a staff of 2 other artists on staff. I would take the yellow Post-its and put it on top of the panels that I wanted to change. I redraw it and then give it to the staff guys to ink it. Okay, now, and then once you get that done and get it to what you want, you send it off to the timing directors. They time it. Send it off to, we would have timing sheets. The guy would time the sheets. Then you would color models, backgrounds, props, make sure that's all done. You ship this thing magically off to Korea. Goes off into the air. And then magically, maybe about 8 weeks later, you start getting footage coming back in on film. And then you go through the film and you're watching going, this is great, oh, this is terrible. Oh, you go through and you have a list of corrections. And so you do that, send it off, but you try and lock the picture to a certain length, because this is what you have to deliver to the networks. Mm-hmm. You lock picture. When you lock picture, you send it off for sound effects, you send it off for voices, you send it off for music. So there's 3 copies sent out to be worked on at the same time. And you're waiting for retakes to come in to try and fill in those holes that were mistakes that you're waiting for the overseas to come in with. And sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. And then what you have to do is that when it goes into post-production, you got to have an idea, okay, what am I going to do? Because the mouth was over here. I got to fix the mouth and put it over here. What can I do to fix that in post-production? Or like someone's the wrong color or whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff you got to do. Now, once you do the picture, you go to a place called the final mix, where they take the music, the sound effects, voices, they blend it into one place. Usually it was on the Warner Brothers lot. That's where it would go. And you have this big giant room, gigantic speakers, big screen, and you're mixing the show to try and make sure that everything blends in together, or when people talking, they don't get muffled by the music and stuff. Once you get that finished, they go through color correction, and then they ship it out to the networks. That's one episode.
And like you were juggling 3 of them at a time, or 4 of them. Or...
Yeah. Well, halfway through everything I described, another episode comes in.
Oh gosh.
And so I'm doing the same thing with I got 1 episode being worked on, and then I got another episode comes in. That's all I got to go through and do all that at the same time. So it's overlapping. I had to overlap at least 2 or 3 shows all the time until we finish the season. So it's like my brain, you got to keep track of all of this stuff at the same time, And that's, yeah, Patrick, yeah, it's a lot of multitasking and keeping track of who's doing what, who's doing the sound effects here, who's did the retakes, did the retakes come in, how can we fix this? It's all happening at once. And it does take up a lot of your mental time because I'm keeping track of all that stuff. Sometimes I will forget my name because it's like I'm working so hard. But yeah, and that's basic. That kind of production, even though it's got computers, it's still that hectic because there's still a lot of manual labor in creating the shows before they go overseas. So it's a lot of work.
What do you think is going to be, and I'll just have a few more questions for you. I want to be mindful of your time because, you can stay on here as long as you want. Real happy. But what do you think is going to be kind of the future of comic books? Because, with now not being able to do the conventions and going to the movies, what do you think is going to be the future in 5 to 10 years? Will we still have a comic book industry?
That's an open question because I think that the return on investment on a comic book today is it's a very slim margin of making money because what in the let's say in the 90s, most comic books were selling like 1 million copies, 1.5 million copies a month. Maybe 500,000, even though today the best-selling comic book at most, unless you have The Walking Dead or something, they're selling under 100,000 a month. 100,000, 50,000, 25,000. So the profit margin is not as great as it used to be, and but the companies need to have product out there in order to maintain their copyrights and trademarks. Mm-hmm. So the future could be the digital comic books, because as long as they're publishing something, they can maintain copyrights and trademarks and maybe introduce new stuff at the same time. Mm-hmm. But the downside is that you lose the casual reader. Like me, when I was a young kid, I'd pick up something, it's like, what is this? And start reading it. And you lose that casual person to pick it up and the new audience to come in, the new readers come in and pick up on a new idea, new books and stuff like that. So I think there will be books. Maybe that's an iffy thing. I mean, one possibility would be that they would maybe have the books done by a subcontractor, just send it off to someone else to take care of it so that they get it off their books and someone else can do it for like a set price, and then they have to figure out how to make a profit out of the price that they get. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a possibility. Maybe comic books they just make them into like graphic novels instead of monthlies. It's hard to predict where they're going to go with it, but comics are not the profit margin they used to be. But the companies know without the comic books, they don't have anything to base the movies on. Yeah. And all of the ancillary revenue streams come from, T-shirts and blankets and all the other stuff. That's where the real money's at. The toys, like toys up there. Yeah. That's where the real money's at. And so they need the books there.
What do you think about the digital books? I mean, have you been looking at them? I mean, I get they're obviously in every single Marvel book I buy now. They've got the sticker. You can get a digital copy because you bought the physical copy. I don't know what you think about. What do you think about the reading? Because I've used them on several different readers, and I mean, what's your opinion of them?
I guess I'm an old dude. I like reading a physical book, man. Pick up the book, read it, turn the page. I'm old school.
Things about it where you can scroll to the right and it'll automatically go to the next pane that you're supposed to read. Whereas, I mean, some of those things are kind of convenient because sometimes I've noticed if they're not organized well on a page, It's hard to tell across all the way across the book, or it's supposed to go like this. You know, it's hard to tell sometimes. But I mean, it makes it a little bit easier. But I still hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, Larry. I love being able to hold a book. It's like you open a book. It's like you're beginning a conversation with an old friend. And I love that, whether it was comic books as a kid or some of the novels that I read. If I can, I really wanted to ask you. You came from you started with the comics. You fell in love with that and knew the characters very intimately, which I think really kind of helped you well as your career grew. But you also began work on some stories really where it was not the stories that created the merchandise, but the merchandise that then created some of the stories. I'm specifically thinking about Masters of the Universe. With their toys. Now, based on my reading, one of the things that you did in your career is when those toys first came out, they had their own little comic books that you played a role in that. What was it like working with something where the toy kind of at least was the impetus for the stories?
Prior to me, I drew about, I think the first 10 Masters of the Universe, the little mini books.
Right.
And prior to that, I had been working on the Hasbro stuff. I've been working on the G.I. Joe and Humanoids and Bigfoot and the Muscle Machine and all these other crazy toy-driven concepts. So when I got the offer to do the He-Man comic book, I'll just say I was already trained in how to take the toys and make it into something entertaining. And so I know that there's a lot of product placement in those comic books, and so I knew what they expected of me. Now, what happened was, though, like the writer came up with these new characters that weren't toys, and I asked them, because the first thing you do is ask them, where's the toy so I can draw it? And they said, well, like the first issue was this character called He-Man fighting a character called Geldor. I said, where's Geldor? I said, they didn't have one. I said, do you mind if I make him up? I said, sure. So the first book I drew was He-Man fighting a black supervillain. His name was Geldor, and on the cover. And so I got a chance to integrate the world and actually, have some fun, Marvel type action and, taking that training I had with the Marvel books and put it into little mini comic books.
Oh, wonderful.
And so I was able to introduce a colony of black people somewhere on that world. Then I had another one where I created an Asian colony somewhere. And then the third one was Native American Indians somewhere on that world. I was able to include them, but I didn't, it wasn't made, I didn't try and make an issue of it. They're just like another character. And they're doing some bad stuff or good stuff. And for me, as long as you show this was the idea back in the 80s, what I remember in the animation world was that you can have a black character that's bad, as long as you have a good black that's once you balance it, basically you show both sides. We're not just this, we're not just that, there's two.
Right.
And so like when I did the American Indian, I had good ones and bad ones. Asians, the same thing. So you just balance the picture so you don't have one stereotype view of one character. But I always, when I was drawing stuff, I focused in on the character. Was he a hero? Was he a villain? And just approach it that way. Not the color, but what motivated the bad guy to do this and do that. And so they gave me a lot of leeway in the comic books, in the mini comic books, to do that. And so I had a lot of fun with that. And I was working, in the daytime on G.I. Joe, and then at nighttime I come home and draw the He-Man comic books.
Oh, wow.
I was 25, I was burning the candle at both ends. I could not do that today. I was young back then.
And thinking about young people, what kind of advice would you give someone young, great artist, but needs that break, trying to break into the industry? what kind of knowledge and wisdom would you give them to help them break into the industry?
If I met them at the convention, I would just, if they asked me questions, I'll just, like now, I'll just tell them everything I know. I would pour all information that I know to help them get where they want. And I would tell them to do what I didn't do when I first got into business, like do your due diligence to figure out what is the industry, how does the industry work? You know, what are the different job categories? What, you know, like if you want to be a computer person doing computer animation, when you're watching a Pixar film, just watch the end credits. Look at all those job categories. There's people who do the rigging, there's people who do the coloring, there's people that do the lighting. There's all these different categories when you see at the end of the credits going, maybe I could do that one. Oh, maybe I could do that one. You know, it's like start doing your due diligence to figure out what part of the business you want to be. I mean, if you want to be a storyteller, okay, check out the people who did the storyboards. You want to be a writer, maybe you want to be a background painter, maybe you want to do props. It's you know, start checking out what you want to do. That's one of the things I tell young kids who want to be an artist. It's like, what do you want to do? You know, if you want to get into animation, you have to figure out what job do you want there. Do you want to be a director? Do you want to be a storyboard? You know, figure out where you want to be in that hierarchy. If you want to be a comic book artist, that's a different route. A lot of that working in comic books, a lot of that works on referrals. Like, you know, if you go to a convention, you meet an artist you really like, or sometimes they have editors who go there or writers. You know, commingle, talk to them, and ask them questions about how they got into the business. How can I get into business? Start developing contacts that way. It's I won't say it's impossible, but you know, cold calling today won't get you where you think you could get in my day. Right. You know, today they want you to create your own website, wait for them to take a look at your samples. You give them the website and you have no idea if they looked at it. It's like putting yourself in a black hole and you just never know what happens to it. Yeah. So a lot of it is contacts and word of having people that you know that when they hear about an opening, they can say, hey, I know somebody named Patrick, you know, he might be good for that job, and they'll give you a call or something, you know. And what it is that if you're being referred by someone who's already in business, they know that you probably have been pre-screened, because they wouldn't, you know, the guy working for you is not going to give you a lemon. He's going to give you somebody that can do the job that they're expected to do, you know. Right. And because if they refer somebody and it doesn't work out, you know, it looks bad on them. So
right,
that kind of stuff. So it's meeting people for comic books, and actually in animation too. It's all word of mouth and meeting professionals and referrals.
So it sounds like relationship management is probably the most important skill that you have, is being able to be a good representation of yourself and being able to make those connections and putting yourself out there in order to really manifest your dreams. Yeah,
because you're competing against. If you want to get a job in whatever, like storyboards or whatever, you have to be as good as the guy who already has the job. So you got to really up your game. You know, you got to be as good as the person that already has it. Yeah. And so there are a lot of, I think online, if you Google storyboards for different shows, you can find it and see what was approved and how they did it, and try and use some of that to try and improve your own style. There's a lot of people out there who do the models and colors and backgrounds. You can Google it on what is it called? Pinterest?
Oh, Pinterest.
Yeah, that one. And Google stuff. luckily today, young talent, you guys have the internet. I didn't have the internet back then, We had fax machines.
We're lucky.
Right. And the calculator was the big.
Oh, it was a big thing. Yes, it was a big thing back then. And we were very low tech. I mean, we had no likes, no dislikes, none of that stuff. It was kind of like, I was like, when I did the show, I didn't find out the show, the X-Men in the first season was popular until maybe second to the last episode.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't me. It was like the story editor's wife went to Fox for some other reason. And she asked him, it's like, does anybody like the X-Men? And what do you know about it? And the guy, she took her, her name was Charlotte Fullerton. She took Eric's wife to the hallway. And there was this, like if you don't pick up your mail, they put it in these like bins, these mail bins. Yeah. So it was full of mail from the floor to the ceiling, and as far back as you could see on both sides of that hallway. Wow. And it was all from kids with postcards, letters, everything, just how much they enjoyed the show. Oh, man. And myself as a director and Eric as a story editor, we had no idea because nobody told us anything. Yeah. And so that's when we found out, hey, they like us, but we still didn't know if we were going to get picked up for a second season.
Oh, wow.
We literally, at the end, we had our resumes because we figured, okay, we're done. Let's go find some other work because we have rent to pay,
Right.
And they said, don't go anywhere. We got to pick up for next season. But the ending that I drew, which was the ending, Jean Grey and Scott on the blanket, sunset, fade out. Mm-hmm. They said, no, you got to change the ending. So we had to manufacture a new ending. Wow. Where they were sitting on the blanket. We dropped some of the dialogue. Mm-hmm. And then Jean Grey says something like, you never know what the future holds or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so we had one of the technicians, we wrote something down, said, here, you say this. It's like, and then he said, Sinister knows what the future holds, playing off her dialogue. Mm-hmm. And that's the voice you hear on the 13th episode is one of the tech guys in the post-production office. And we manufactured this like computer blinking lights and stuff. And we manufactured a computer shadow coming into scene. And, and that's how we ended the series, like setting up with season 2.
Wow.
But no, we ended the series. Nobody told us anything,
That's great. Well, we have really enjoyed you coming and visiting with us. You have, of course, my final question is, do you want to come back and join us?
Oh, yes. I'd love to do that and come back on time, too.
Fantastic. We would love to have you anytime you want to come on. You're welcome. The knowledge that you dropped today is invaluable to people who want to understand the history, but also what they need to do now. And so we really appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to you returning.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And if you have any, have me back. And if you have some more questions on, the X-Men, G.I. Joe, let's see, X-Men, G.I. Joe, Karate Kid, Captain Planet, Johnny Quest, Kid and Play. Probably Fantastic Four. That's right. Yeah. Those are the shows I directed. Yeah.
And for giving us a peek behind the scenes, it's just. And so, thank you, and thank everyone for joining us today. And we look forward to a great week, and we'll see you next time on PJamma Lyfe.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.